Hi everyone, today I'm going to be drawing my version of a dog I think looks like Tramp. I did a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel last week, and I know Lady is a Cocker Spaniel in Lady and the Tramp, the Disney movie, but my husband said that it reminded him of her, so I know it's not accurate, but it's kind of my version of Lady and the Tramp. And so it got me thinking about whether I should draw a tramp just to go with it. And I know Tramp is actually a, what they call a mongrel, isn't it? A crossbreed, or, you know, nobody really knows what he is. But he looks a bit schnauzer, he looks a bit terrier. So I thought I'd find a picture of a schnauzer and adapt it. And then see what I end up with. So the other exciting thing is that I'm using Polydraw. This drafting, I don't know what you call it. Is it drafting film? I suppose it is. This kind of weird tracing paper, but I've heard that it's really good and I do like smooth paper, so we shall see. No preconceived ideas at all. I'll just see how we go. So you'll be coming along with me. I'm just going to zoom in on the part that I'll be beginning on, which is usually the eyes. So I've got this acid-free paper that goes with the Polydraw. And what I've done is I've actually put the Polydraw over my laptop and drawn an outline. And I don't normally do this, but I did hear that this was a good idea. Well, you could do it with Polydraw, which obviously makes life a lot easier and a lot quicker than trying to outline as I normally would. But I'm a bit worried that I've confused myself by adding too many lines, because usually I just measure up the outline and then and then kind of work outwards. And with Lady, I actually realised that I'd drawn the cheek too big. So, you know, it's not until you do the rest of it that you can read and then you can adjust. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure if it was a good idea or not. I think that's in focus. Right, okay. So I'm going to start with the left eye, and I'm just going to actually just outline. See, here you go. I think I've already drawn it. Oh, goodness sake. Right, I'm not sure that was a good idea then. But then I don't know how, my outline, I can be a bit sketchy, and I don't know how this would lift off. Might be fine, I don't know. Anyway, it's a new medium, a new surface to draw on. Oh, it's really nice. Oh, it's really nice. It's like, I don't know, like really tactile. You really feel like you can feel the pencil on it. Does that make sense? Sorry about all the thumping upstairs. That's my children moving around. And they're just above our heads, so that's not. All right, so I'm just drawing the outline, and I'm just adding a little bit of that dark area just to make sure that I can see. Oh, I do like this feel. It's weird. It's not scratchy. I've never used pastel mat, so I don't know what that feels like. I assume, and this might be a big kind of misconception about pastel mat, but I assume that it's gritty, like sandpapery. That might not be true. So I'm just going to go in with a really, really light hand, small circles into the darkest areas that I know are there. And then I can build it up layer by layer. There's a shadow there. I'm just going to add in so I know that that's there. The first pencil strokes really are to map everything out, and So that's what I'm doing to begin with. There's quite a lot going on in this eye, but it's also quite blurry, if that makes sense. Yeah, there's quite a lot to work on. There's a lower mark that I want to leave out. There's a big brown bit here, and then there's a real big highlight there. It comes up here, so use small circles, and down again. And then it's all the things that are reflected in the eye. There's a blue tinge right in the middle. So this part in here is not a block colour, so that's something you need to watch. Because you can look at the eye and think, well, that's just black, but it's not. There's lots of different colours within this dark area. You can't actually see a pupil at all in this eye. There's just lots of weird shapes and lines. So there's also the sun reflected and a shadow around it. So there's a brown part here. And there's a little bit of brown outline there. It is a little bit blue. Blues I always find a little bit tricky. Oh, this one is grey blue, so that might be a good option for the eye. It's not too blue. Oh yeah, that is a good colour. Grey blue. There's also some of that sky reflected in here. And there's also a little bit here. The sun is a very, very bright dot. And then the sky around it is grey. So I'm going to go in with a cold grey. And I think I've gone a little bit heavy on that outline of, well, no, I don't know, it is quite. So I want to go in and there's actually an outline of the white in blue. This part of blue is darker, so it's just about going in and building up the colour, smudging the outline a little bit, and then coming down. That's better. And then there's quite a lot of darkness around here. The blue is darker, and there's a darker blue, so I'm going to find that. Yeah, I'm going to go in with the Prussian blue. And there is a few little lines and bumps in here. Just going to go over the outline a little bit and then take that out to the edge. The Prussian blue, I've made that section a bit too blue, but that's fine because I can go in and adjust that. I'm going to go in with some of the greys now. Just add a little bit of backwards and forwards with the eyes. This part's lighter than this part. I'm going to go in with some grey over the top. Darken that edge there. And then there's actually a few little lines that come into here that are highlights that I just want to leave out. And they just add to the detail in the eye. That's not a definite line, so go in and darken that up a little bit. darken up that edge. That's not a big crisp highlight, so I'm just going to grey that in a little bit. There's more of a definitive line here, but it's not necessarily straight, and there's quite a line there. I'm going to go in with a black in a minute. There's a line across, and I'm going to darken up the edge here. It comes all the way down. Gosh, I'm really loving this texture. There's a part here that is a bit lighter. That goes up into the top part of the eye. And then there's a shadow that comes across and a little bit down here. The fur starts to come in around here. There's quite a lot of detail around the tear duct. There's a gap. That's not a square edge, so just being a bit careful. There's a line in the middle. There's a highlight there. So it's a bit like a jigsaw to begin with. You're mapping out where everything's going to go, and you just, with colour pencil, and I don't really know too much about the Polydraw yet, but it's difficult to erase. So what you're needing to do is go from light to dark and leaving the highlights clear of anything. Okay, so that's looking quite round. I think I've got all the elements in. Now I'm going to black it up and just go in with a little bit more definition on the go in with the black and just add a little bit of definition to certain areas. Might just take this light down a little bit. Right, so there's black here, and it merges in around the edge there. You know, I think the black does add like an added element. It just almost finishes it off. Oh, I love this paper. What is it, paper? I don't even know what it is. Oh, I'm really liking it so far. I'm going to lighten up that blue. I'm going to lighten up that blue I've done with the white Caran d'Ache. Just smudge that in a little bit. I'm a nightmare for snapping the nibs off. I am obviously naturally heavy-handed. That's better. Which isn't good. But I don't seem to be able to help it. I tell myself every time, soften your grip, maybe hold it a bit lower down. Don't have as much control then though, which is not ideal. Right, so there's a few interesting shapes along this part. There's a triangle bit, there's a dip, and then it comes up into like a big mound. Comes across here, and then dark part in the middle, and then the bottom is a bit lighter. Overall it's dark, so I'm just going to add some black to that blue hue, just to darken that up a little bit with a very, very light hand. And then this section is all dark, and actually that comes around like that. A little bit flatter on the top, black underneath. And there's a dark line here. Definitely a shadow underneath. This is dark. And then this is all dark here. Dark line. And then that's quite a dark line. Actually, that outline of the sun is really quite dark. So it's just trying to work out how dark to go. Coming down into that tear duct area. And making sure that I'm leaving that highlight free. Try not to outline it too much, but making sure that I'm going around it. And then this part is actually quite dark. That all kind of merges into the fur, so I'm not going to worry too much about that, and I am going to darken up. Oh gosh, this paper. Ooh, at the moment I'm not in any way feeling any fight. I'm not feeling, I can feel like I can layer up as much as I want. I'm obviously just working on this small section at the moment, but I do sometimes struggle with the eyes and getting them dark enough without wrecking the paper. That section isn't white. I'm just going to darken that up a little bit. See, as you can see, it's the eye is a weird mismatch of shapes. And actually there's a dark part there. The eye in my photo that I'm drawing is massive, so I'm trying to get all of the detail into this tiny little area. I kind of wish I'd have drawn him a little bit darker, bigger now, but I'm not starting again. The other thing I've heard with Polydraw is that you can draw on the back, which could be quite interesting. Right, so there's one eye, but also what I might do is just add a little bit of context. It looks a bit weird when it's not got any anything around it, so I'm going to start going in and mapping in. There's a weird line there. I'm going to leave that out. And there's like a kidney shape there, so I'm going to leave that out. I'm going to go in with a little bit of a hint of fur. Get my brush. Bum. Dropped it on the floor. This is quite a scruffy dog. And it's got lots of greys, lots of browns. I think it's going to be a really interesting one. Just mapping out where that fur goes. I don't want to get bogged down too much with detail just yet, but it's all about kind of mapping out where everything's going to go. Just little scribbly lines. It's quite dense around here. There's a line across there. It's a bit scribbly. A little bit gappy there. But this kind of section here is quite dark. Good to map out these fur markings. Don't want a harsh edge there. Just so I know where I'm going, if that makes sense. That comes across there. Just mapping out the markings. And then I feel like I can add a little bit of colour to it. This area above the eye is really dark, so I'm going to go in with a darker grey. What I want is a warm grey. I think that was a cold grey I was using. Might even go in with the sepia here. Okay, so this is the first time I've actually used Pablo's, and I've got the full set of the Caran d'Ache Luminance pencils, and I've used the Faber-Castell Polychromos for a long time, but I've heard that these are really good in between. So I thought I'd give them a go. Liking them so far. There's a really nice one that I like the look of that I've seen other people use, which is the Cocoa, which is a really nice grey, but browny grey, which is going to be perfect for this dog. So that's why I was kind of interested in getting them. And you can get them open stock from the colour pencil shop, so I thought I'd just grab a few of the ones that I think I might use. Ooh, that is a nice colour, isn't it? Darkens it up nicely with a really nice brown tinge. Do you like that? I've got a feeling that this drawing is going to be a lot quicker than the lady one, because I don't have those enormous spaniel ears to tackle, which I really don't know how long they took me. A long time. I was getting to the point where it was a little bit frustrating, and so I thought there must be a quicker way to do this, and so I tried something new. I kind of experimented with the different techniques and managed to get it done a lot quicker. But you can't always do that if you've got a commission. You know, you can't experiment with somebody's piece. That it might go wrong. That's just too risky. So it's nice to do these pieces for yourself that aren't commissions, and just, you know, experiment, have fun. It gives you that love back. The other thing I was noticing with this dog is that the fur isn't soft and smooth, although I don't want it to look spiky. It's quite wiry, so that's going to be an interesting look. Right, what colour is this one? Ash grey. Ooh, see, I like these colours. They seem to so I'm going to blend with the ash grey. Ooh, I've been hovering on my board a bit too much, pressing down. Ooh. So this is a really experimental piece for me. This is new pencils, new paper. Interesting to see how this one turns out. Look at this lovely colour. Oh, Ooh. This is a really interesting coloured dog. Right, see that pencil line is way too heavy. Using my trusty kneadable eraser, I am going to pull a little bit off. Just see if I can take that up a little bit, because it's going to notice. Because actually the outside gets a lot softer. What a lovely colour this is. Loving it. Again, I'm going to pull up that line there. Can't quite tell if I've smudged stuff or not. That blends into white, so that's going to be interesting. I really like this texture of this film, whatever it is. I don't actually know what it is. I'm really liking these Pablo colours as well. See, quite sketchy, scribbly. What other colour can I use? I'll go back to the cocoa again. You'll find that, you know, these pencils, you won't know what you did before you had them, if that makes sense. Because they just seem to be the perfect colour. Yeah, that is quite a browny grey, isn't it? It's lovely. Right, so there's a lot of texture in here that I haven't added yet. And that's going to need some darker greys coming through. So I'm going from scribbly to fur kind of strokes, because it is a bit of a combination of both. What I'm doing is just building up the kind of colours that I can see. And then I'm going to go in with a darker colour over the top. When you've got a lighter area like this, it's quite important to add a few of the lines in, so it incorporates the darker fur into the lighter fur, because you'll tend to find that there are some bits that go across. It's not just a plain. More of a brown. Maybe the raw umber. If in doubt, raw umber, because there's a brown undertone here that I want to get in before I add the dark parts. This eye area is got every single colour going, I think, so it'd be nice to get all of these in before I move on to the rest of the grey. There's some brown in here. See, now that's looking quite yellow. Just to brown up some of the yellow. Never panic. I don't want to brown it all up because I do quite like that yellow tinge. But I think it just needs taking back a little bit. This section here is quite dark, but I'm going to go in with some darker greys in a second. And then that is quite brown. Right, now I've browned it up quite a lot. I need to go in with some greys. Now I'm going to grey it up and go in with some darker greys. Oh, this slate grey is nice. They are quite soft, these Pablos, aren't they? Compared to the polychromos. So I'm finding that there, you know, there's bits coming off. Which is a bit annoying, I suppose. Lovely colours though. And I think you just do have to try and work with, they've all got their pros and cons, haven't they? Which is why a lot of artists use different pencils for different things, different colours. To darken that part up a little bit, and I'm going to go in with the dark sepia in a minute. It's a nice colour. And then that changes direction there. So you're trying to take into account the bone structure of the dog. Not just taking for granted that all of the fur is running in the same direction. Because it doesn't. It changes quite a lot on a dog. Which can be a bit confusing, so you've really got to keep looking, and you do get used to knowing which bits are going to be slightly more difficult to navigate. There's a dark part there that goes over the brown. Darkens up there. Right, I think we're ready to go in with a darker brown now. And actually, I think it's the sepia we're going to have to go in with. But I think what I might do is blend it out with the warm grey. Right, I'm going to darken up everything now that needs darkening. There's quite a shadow across there. You can do quite a scribbly mark here because you want that shaggy look. There's some lighter parts, but they go in darker. And this is quite dark. This is quite dark up here as well. And there are some little dots and lines around that just tie it in. Definitely dark going down there. There's a line here. There, and that goes into a bit of shadow at the end. That isn't white, but definitely needs to be preserved. The lighter grey part there. It's not about getting every single piece of fur in accurately, but it's about mapping out where the shadows and the highlights are. And that's quite important. Because it just gives it depth, you know, it just, oh God, I'm leaning on this again. Another part under there. quite dark. Might even need to go in with a bit of black just to darken it up to the point where it needs. There's a point there that's quite dark. Now I think I need to go in with the cold grey. No, the warm grey. This might be a good one. Just to soften everything. Blend it in a little bit. And also what I think I need to do is go in with either my Tombow Mono eraser or my Slice, or a bit of both. I'm going to go in with my Tombow first of all. Just going to pick the end off so it's a bit cleaner. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of texture in here. In here as well. And then making sure that this is blended out. There's quite a few lighter parts that come down into there. And then this part is not exaggerated enough as a highlight. So any parts you've gone a bit heavy in, you can just lift up, and also get a little bit of texture in with this one. So just a few lighter areas. And it just takes away any kind of uniformness. You can add little flyaway hairs as well, which is always good. I do think I need to darken up a little bit. Turn this light down a little bit. It's hard to see how dark it is. There's a little area here that needs darkening. And that is a bit more defined. There's an area there which definitely needs darkening up. And that goes into that tear duct area which needs darkening. It's a little bit complicated around this section of eye. There's parts there that are darker. It does outline that little bit there. Don't know what that is, just a change of fur direction, I think. There's a shadow here. And that part is dark. As is this part up here. See, in the context of the rest of the eye, this looks too dark because the rest of it is just white, the paper showing through. But once you've got everything in together, it will look a lot better. Okay, just need to just take a little bit of colour off this bit. It's not such a massive highlight, and there are sections that are more grey. Same with that part there, it's more grey than white. Just adding some lines in. I do like you can get this kind of scratchiness on the Polydraw. It's really nice. Just blend that in. Right,